Right, hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. So this is an extra episode that's I wasn't really expecting to do today, but and it's all to do with Superbike Factory, because obviously people are now waking up to the news that as of yesterday, Superbike Factory applied to appoint administrators to the business. And what does that really mean? So it's to do with by appointing administrators. Very similar, I think, to what KTM did. Is to protect everything that they have, the business, from creditors for a point. It sort of ring fences everything, because the creditors will then need to look at how they can deal with the business. Can they sell it, or what can they do? You know, keep it running, etc., and trying to find a buyer for it. But I was given the heads up yesterday. We were coming back from France, and Bobby P, one of my subscribers, pinged me a message and said, "Have you heard about Superbike Factory?" And it's a bit of a shock. So I thought it was important to see what was really going on. And in the business news late like yesterday, it started to come out about what was going on. So I was quite shocked at that, because I've had not dealings with Superbike Factory, but I've done quite a few bits from Superbike Factory, and to me it seemed like an incredibly profitable company, or they were certainly really doing well. And looking at the accounts that they had from, or the last filed accounts, if you like, which would be 23-24, 23-24. They had a turnover of over £80 million and a profit of about 8 million. Give or take. So they're running at about 10% profitability, which is not huge, I don't think, in industry, but maybe that's not as bad as you think in the automotive sort of industry, I suppose. But what they're citing as their problem, apart from the usual, cost of living crisis, is that they are struggling with getting companies to offer finance to their customers. And you can understand that. So we'll sort of unpick that a little bit. So when you think about the sort of finance they're offering, and they're offering it through third parties, really, which most of these companies do. So you would go to Superbike Factory, you would buy a bike and finance. The finance company gives Superbike Factory the money for the bike, and then the finance company effectively sort of own that bike, if you like. It's an odd sort of system. And it's the finance company with it that takes the risk. And when you're offering finance, I think one of the problems is when you're offering that sort of finance, which is to, if you like, high risk type of finance, because you remember they had, if you watch my video that I did when I went up to Donington, when they were changing some of their policies, which seemed to be for the better, they used to have, bad finance and that on their listings, didn't they? Or bad credit, didn't they? Good credit, bad credit. And there's obviously a few stages in between that. And it's those finance companies are taking on quite a lot of the risk with that. And it leaves you quite vulnerable, finance companies vulnerable, because if you cannot then recover your money, which although would be a lot of profit to lend money at higher rates, you still got to try and recover that money. Now, what Superbike Factory have found is, one of their problems, and this is very similar in the automotive industry in general with finance, is that it's very weighed heavily, although they'd like to think it's for the consumer, it's actually for the finance company. And the changes in, I think, legislation or changes in policy is that the finance company, if the customer has that bike or car, and they say, well, this bike, this vehicle isn't up to standard, the finance company can basically go back to the retailer and say that bike's substandard, you've got to have it back, and you're going to have to pay compensation or some reparation to the buyer. And that's where they're being caught out. And it looks to me is that Superbike Factory have seen this coming down the road. Even though the company is profitable, it's seen it coming down the road and thought, we're seeing a trend here. And I think there's been some historic finance deals that they've done, which are coming back to bite them a little bit, maybe. So that seems to be the problem. And there's some other things I think which are causing them problems as well. But that seems to be the key one of what they're citing in their papers, if you like. So I believe as of now, I think that the doors have shut, and the administration, if it's allowed to go through, if they're allowed to appoint administrators, because I don't think the company is insolvent as far as I can tell, and you may be in a situation where whoever the regulator is, who looks at the applications, is no, you're solvent. You're going to have to trade your way out of this. I don't know. That's sort of like guesswork. So I don't want to go too into depth into that, because I think as the days pass, more will come evident. But other things which I think will be causing Superbike Factory problems is their size. Now, I've said before that when I went up to Donington and I was talking to one of their people there, and I think it's important to also remember that there's an awful lot of people working at Superbike Factory, really good people who are now sort of thinking, oh my God, what do I do now? And I think that has to be the forefront in some of this stuff, because they remember when I went to Donington, they had that big apprenticeship program where they were putting all those young apprentices through that, that sort of stuff. That costs money, and that's the sort of first thing that goes, isn't it? And the administrators have no feelings for these sort of people, and they're the first people to be out the door, because they're an immediate loss to the business. So, which isn't thinking ahead, is it? Unfortunately, but I really hope that those people get other jobs, because I have no beef to grind with Superbike Factory. They were always very kind to me, and they asked nothing of me. They really didn't. And obviously it's giving them some sort of publicity, but I always found them very fair and very kind to me, and helping me with the channel. So yeah, to all those people all those workers out there that are watching, best of luck to you, because I think you deserve it. I think there's some really great people there, and all the guys at Crawley Superbike Factory, because they were always really helpful for me, and really lovely and kind people. So good luck. But going back to the problem in hand, I think also I've said before that I think Superbike Factory was an enormous animal to feed, and you had to find an extraordinary amount of bikes. They're the largest retailer second-hand bikes in Europe. Was it something like 15,000 bikes a year? It was a huge number. And I think when I looked at how many bikes were coming into Crawley and being turned over on a daily basis, it was an extraordinary number of bikes. But you've got to keep feeding that. And I think when you look at where they're getting their bikes from, they're getting those buy-in bikes, which is like a sister company. They don't know it's like a sister company, We Buy Any Bike. They're coming in from there. They're coming in from the end of PCP terms, stuff like that. So you're getting finance companies outside of their control selling them bikes in. You're getting dealers, main dealers will be selling them bikes. There'll be part exchanges, which some main dealers, you got a lot of main dealers like BMWs and people like that. They're not interested in retailing second-hand bikes. They want to retail new bikes. So, because that's their business. So they're getting those bikes in. And if those bikes start to dry up, now why would those bikes start to dry up? Well, people can't get finance, and so the PCPs are being slowly eroded. Also, you've got the situation where, and this is why I think this is a big blow to the industry if it does cease trading completely, is that one, you're going to get a huge flood of bikes onto the market, which can only reduce the value of second-hand bikes. Now, why would that do that? Well, you're going to get a situation where main dealers, going back to main dealers, you're going to get main dealers who won't be able to out their part exchange bikes. So you're going to have a situation where you're going to go to one of our new bikes, you're going to take your bike in there to part exchange, they're going to go, we don't really want it. Oh, okay. So what do I do? Well, we'll give you this much for it now. We're going to give you very little for it, because they're going to have to out it very cheap. So that has a knock-on effect with the values of second-hand bikes, trade-in bikes. But you're going to have this huge wave now of second-hand stock being thrown onto the market. And I think, or potentially, and the problem with that again is that I don't think the current crop of dealers in the UK, the bike dealers, can swallow that unless it's incredibly cheap. And then we have this catch-22. The administrators, if they have to release all these bikes, they're going to be sold at 25p in the pound. That's what happens when you sell administrative stock. It goes off at some stupid rate because the administrator don't care. They just want it gone. They'll get paid regardless. So, and I've been in this situation before in a retailer, and stuff was sold off 25 pence in the pound. And that's what happened. Of course, when you do that, you flood the market with cheap bikes. The dealers want to turn around quickly. Because there's so many, the price drops. And then the whole market has to reset and come back again. That takes time. The other problem I think that Superbike Factory have had is that I think that a lot of the manufacturers were starting to offer 0% finance. So Royal Enfield were doing that. We're offering 0% finance on certain models of their bikes. That was attracting buyers. Those bikes are relatively cheap to start with. So that's eating into the second-hand stock the Superbike Factory was selling, because I don't think I'll have a second-hand bike. I'll have a new bike with the warranty and all the rest of it, even though Superbike Factory were offering warranties. You've also got the China syndrome, haven't you? In that the Chinese are offering extremely good value bikes. I don't know about the finance on those bikes, but they're offering very cheap bikes, into the market, which again, buy new, buy second hand. And as if you watch this morning's video, that the Chinese market is starting to mature, and it's come at a point where it's maturing where enough where people think, oh well, I'm not going to buy a second hand bike now. I'm going to buy a new bike, and that puts them in a stronger position. So I think this is a very unusual thing. I think more's going to come out of this, very soon. We're going to get more information about what's actually happened there. But I think when you have a business which is it does show a profit, and in the motor trade, I think 10% is pretty good. As far as in the second-hand motor trade, 10% is pretty good. You have to think that you'd like to think that they would trade their way out of it. But because your business is based on finance, if you cannot now get the finance for your new customers, very difficult. So we'll see where that ends up. Is it possible to split those showrooms up? I think so. I think things like Donington, when you look at Donington, it's a beautiful cafe, it's a beautiful layout, it's all done, it's in a great position, you could go up there. I think the buying experience was pretty good. It was getting better and better. So you think that maybe someone would come in, but will those people still have the same problem of getting finance companies to finance those bikes for people that want to buy them? So very tricky, isn't it? But my concern is the damage it will now do to the second-hand market and second-hand values, because we know it's been so up and down, hasn't it? There will be a lot of people that will be thinking, well, I'm going to buy an absolute bargain here, and I expect there will be. Where they will go to, I don't know. Where you will see those, I don't think there'll be a huge auction and people, there's a man with a gavel. You tend to find that administrators don't like doing that. Administrators want to sell them all, someone to come in and just buy everything, and that's when the prices get really deflated. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say really. I think it's a sad day if Superbike Factory does go down. I know there will be the naysayers saying, well, good riddance to that, and I think that's a bit disingenuous. They were supplying a lot of bikes to a lot of people that wanted to get on the road. And what a great place, wasn't it, to go and just actually look at bikes and sit, you could sit on the bike. I know you couldn't test one, but you could sit on the bikes and get an idea of what you wanted. There was nowhere in the UK or Europe where you could do that in such huge numbers. So I think it will be a loss. But let's hope that someone does come in, a decent administrator, I don't know if there's many out there, decent administrator works it out and finds buyers for the business, or sometimes works out how they can manage the ensuing damage, if you like, and put it right to some extent and carry on. But let's see. So yeah, that's today's shock news flash. So they've applied. to appoint administrators to Superbike Factory, and it's the whole group, not just individual businesses, it's the whole group. So let's see what happens in the next few days. Obviously more information is going to come out, but I think over speculation is a bit damaging. I think, you know, that's all we really know at the moment, and that's been verified in the business news about that. But let's see what happens, and good luck to those guys. You know, hang in there, and hopefully if it does go down, that you will find new jobs, because there's some really good people at those, particularly at Donington and Crawley that I've met, were fantastic people, really clever, really on the ball. And sadly, it's those people that tend to get it most. But let's hope you find other jobs, or it is resurrected in some other form, and you keep yourselves there. So good luck to you. Right, thanks for watching, and I will see you on Wednesday's episode, which may give an update on this if there is anything then. Right, take care, look after yourselves, and see you again soon.